Thank you to my patrons. Your generosity and commitment to my work is astonishing. I sincerely appreciate it. If you'd like to see your name in the credits and gain access to a plethora of other perks, bonuses, and extras, please consider becoming a patron today. Simply click the link in the description below. Thank you.
You think that our consciousness can extend down to the micro level, to the level of...
I do.
The micro level of DNA.
This is pseudoscience in its purest form. And again, this is another reason why I do not trust Jordan Peterson as an intellectual or as an academic. How could such an intelligent fellow arrive at such a ridiculous conclusion?
Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way. Thank you.
The man delves into pseudoscience more often than I'm comfortable with. I mean, to be perfectly honest, delving into pseudoscience even once is probably enough to raise an eyebrow for me and to cause me to be skeptical about an individual, but Jordan Peterson does this routinely. Allow me to serve you a starter before we move on to the main course. In Jordan Peterson's now infamous debate with Matt Dillahunty, Peterson said that people can't quit smoking unless they have a mystical or a religious experience. If you don't believe me, check this out.
As someone who's been high as a kite, I fully agree that people take drugs and report experiences that they describe as mystical or supernatural. Just like people report other experiences as if they were religious or ghosts or whatever. We have no way of confirming that this something mystical or supernatural actually happened. What this is about the language.
Stops people from smoking.
Well, you can stop smoking without any sort of supernatural intervention.
No, not really.
You can't stop smoking without supernatural?
There aren't really any reliable chemical means for inducing smoking cessation. You can use a drug called bupropion. I think that's the one. Whatever Wellbutrin is.
Is that supernatural?
No, you don't need a supernatural effect, but it doesn't work very well. But if you give people magic mushrooms, psilocybin, and they have a mystical experience, they have about an 85% chance of smoking cessation with one treatment. But that's kind of like evidence, you know.
Before we discuss this, have a listen to Matt's response. I think he nails it.
It's kind of like evidence.
It's evidence that you can take mushrooms and increase your chance of quitting smoking. But
no, it's not. It's indication that if you take mushrooms and you have a mystical experience, you'll stop smoking because it doesn't work if you don't have
if you take mushrooms and you have an experience that you describe as mystical, then you'll increase your chance of smoking. But that doesn't tell me whether or not there was something to this notion that they had an experience that was supernatural in any sense.
Matt is spot on here. These individuals have had an experience that they described in a particular way. It doesn't follow that what they described actually happened. Sure, these people are presumably being honest and reporting things to the best of their ability, but it doesn't follow that what they experienced is quote-unquote real. If somebody tells me that they've seen a flying saucer, I may very well take them at their word, and yet I don't come to the conclusion that therefore flying saucers exist. A person can be honest and mistaken. Maybe it wasn't really a flying saucer. Perhaps it was simply a drone. There are ways in which people can be mistaken. And so I will take somebody at their word, and yet I do not necessarily believe in the thing that they're claiming. The same is true when people quit cigarettes. If people quit cigarettes and they claim that the reason they did so was because they had some kind of a mystical or religious experience, it doesn't follow that they actually entered into some kind of commune with the divine or some kind of supernatural realm. But Jordan Peterson seemed to phrase this in such a manner that he took the religious or mystical element seriously.
But that's kind of like evidence, you know.
And again, this sheds some light on why I am hesitant to trust him as an intellectual. This is problematic, but remember, this is just the starter. Here is the main course. In 2022, Jordan Peterson sat down with evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins. The pair discussed a range of issues, but it was during this discussion that Jordan Peterson tabled the preposterous idea that certain tribes have entered states of meditative consciousness, and that during these states of consciousness, they may have, in fact, managed to glimpse into the microscopic realm of DNA, and that this might explain why we see double helix imagery being represented in the cultures of the world. Now, you tell me, dear listener, is that bullshit or is that bullshit? Richard Dawkins said so himself.
I think that under some conditions, vision can expand to the point where they can see down into the micro level. They can apprehend the micro level consciously.
You think that our consciousness can extend down to the micro level, to the level of...
I do.
The micro level of DNA. Okay.
Well, since we're on this topic, I have taken extremely high doses of psilocybin. Like 4 doses is enough basically to knock you out of your body. I wouldn't recommend it casually. I took 7 grams 3 times. And I had this shamanic experience. It was unbelievable, and I don't even know how. I have no idea how to make sense out of it.
Well, I believe that. I can quite understand you have a most extraordinary experience. I've never taken such a drug, but I could imagine you have a most remarkable experience. But you've just said that you think that your consciousness can see into your cells and see the structure of DNA. That has got to be utter nonsense. I'm sorry.
Well, like I said, I'm perfectly reasonable, willing to admit forthrightly that is a highly speculative idea. In this visionary experience, I could feel my consciousness go down these levels of analysis. And I could see things that they appeared to me in my field of imagination. And I looked at them and I thought, that looks a lot like DNA.
But you're an educated man who already knows about DNA.
Yes. These people didn't know it was DNA.
Didn't know about it. That's what's so...
Oh, no, they didn't know.
It doesn't surprise me in the least that you could have a visionary experience and think you see your DNA in your own cells. That, of course, is highly plausible. What is not
because I already know about it.
Yes. What is not plausible is that somebody who does not know about it, an ancient Chinese sculptor, whatever it was, who working long before Watson and Crick discovered the structure of DNA,
could possibly apprehend
it. That just isn't
fair
wrong.
enough.
My big problem is equating it with DNA. That's bull. However,
now just because Richard Dawkins said so doesn't make it the case. So allow me to offer my 2 cents. I concur. This is chronic, foul-smelling bull. This is pseudoscience in its purest form. And again, this is another reason why I do not trust Jordan Peterson as an intellectual or as an academic. How could such an intelligent fellow arrive at such a ridiculous conclusion? Now, you may want to defend him and say, oh, well, he was just speculating, Magic Skeptic.
I'm perfectly reasonable, willing to admit forthrightly that is a highly speculative idea.
He was just being a bit ambitious in his speculation, and perhaps you should extend an olive branch and give him a free pass here. This might sound like a reasonable defense, but I don't think so. I think those who wish to defend Peterson in this way are simply trying to preserve his image in their minds. And I think people would recognize how wretched a defense it is if we were to deploy that defense in another context. Can you imagine, for example, if you went to the doctor and the doctor just playfully speculated, but sincerely speculated all the same, that your illness might be caused by pixies, that your illness might be caused by the fairies at the end of the garden? Now, to make it apples to apples, the doctor never seriously considers this, if we're going to accept this defense. The doctor never seriously suggests this, but he does consider it as a potential possibility. He's not ready to believe it yet, but your doctor is honestly considering and speculating about the possibility that pixies and or fairies might be responsible for your illness. Would you be tempted to return to that doctor's surgery? Would you be tempted to go back there to receive care once again? I know I wouldn't. I would feel that my doctor had gone off the deep end. And if you were to say to me, but Magic Skeptic, your doctor was just speculating. The doctor was just, give him a free pass. He was just engaging in a little bit of playful speculation. He was just theorizing, just thinking about what could be the case. He doesn't literally believe it. He was just speculating. Give him a break. Well, I'm sorry, dear listener, but if you think that that's an acceptable defense, I'm just not cut from that cloth. We may very well be at an impasse here if you think that that's an acceptable defense. I don't. I think you should be held to account for your speculations. Your speculations are a reflection upon you as an individual, and they are a reflection on an academic or an intellectual and the quality of their thinking. And I'm sorry, dear listener, but it causes me great concern when an academic is speculating about the existence of states of consciousness that allow an individual to peer into one's own DNA. That is a pretty alarming speculation, and Peterson's feet should be held to the fire on this issue. And that's all I'm doing here. If you want to defend him and say that it was just a speculation, go right ahead. But remember, all I'm doing in this video is explaining to you why I have pause for thought when it comes to trusting Jordan Peterson and the quality of his thinking. Now, just to be thorough, and in order to anticipate one other potential defense of Peterson's speculation here, allow me to say the following. Some defenders will point out that the reason Peterson has speculated the possibility of being able to peer into the microscopic structure of DNA is because this double helix imagery has been found in cultures that were separated by thousands of miles and never communicated with one another.
It's perfectly reasonable of you, and I think perspicacious, to have pointed to my attempt to speculate about how these images of intertwined helixes happen to propagate themselves all over the world. Because I have a problem with that, because I can't understand why that's the case.
So the question is, how could two completely isolated and disconnected tribes have come across the same imagery? Before I give my 2 cents, here's what Dawkins had to say on the matter.
The coincidence of an image or a statue in this part of the world and that part of the world, you should think about how improbable it is that two people might have hit upon the same design. I mean, the idea
right.
of a snake spiraling around each other, it's not that difficult to think of. It wouldn't be ridiculously improbable that two tribes on opposite sides of the world would independently come upon that.
I fully agree with Dawkins' comments here. Coincidence is a very reasonable hypothesis. It's not like a double helix image is that complicated. It is not impossible for two different tribes in two different parts of the world, completely isolated and disconnected from one another, to arrive at such a simple image. But even if you find coincidence to be an uncompelling explanation, that doesn't serve as evidence for the truth of Peterson's speculation. You'd still have to do all of the legwork in order to demonstrate that peering into the microscopic structure of one's own DNA is the best candidate explanation. Peterson hasn't done this. Suffice to say, this is reason number 2 why I do not trust Jordan Peterson as an academic. Hey everybody, Magic Skeptic here. And if you enjoyed this clip, please consider checking out the full episode right here. Alternatively, and if you're in the mood for something else, why not check out this episode right here? Either way, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. All the best. Bye-bye.